It's one of the smallest superpowers, an island nation with a proud warrior spirit. Today, one force in their army is the best of the best. A rapier-edge special operations group that has carved a legend.
If you're a terrorist organization, don't screw around with the SAS. They'll kill you.
The British SAS are a tornado, smashing anything that stands between them and their objective.
We always train for headshots so that you got a guaranteed kill.
Prepare to get locked and loaded as we go back through generations of technology to trace the evolution of the deadliest elite force in the world, the SAS. It's time to go ballistic. The Special Air Service, the SAS, Britain's supreme special ops unit. From raiding the North African airfields of World War II to busting scuds behind enemy lines in Iraq and neutralizing radical terrorists. When Queen and Country comes calling, these guys don't stop till the bad guys drop. To take down their enemies in close quarters, they use stun grenades, Browning and Sig Sauer pistols, and MP5 submachine guns. For penetrating behind enemy lines, the SAS use heavily armored Land Rovers. Their motto is, who dares wins, and they always win. Now, weaponology will unlock their family tree, going back through generations of technology to reveal how direct action, close quarter training, and relentless firepower have evolved the SAS into the most feared, daring, and slick of the world's elite special units. In the 21st century, every nation has its own special forces group, tasked with covert missions deep behind enemy lines, counterinsurgency, and hostage takedowns. These units are the elite of the elite. They combine snipers, mountain climbers, specialist drivers, medics, martial arts gurus, and explosive experts. Take them on, and you will lose. But rewind 50 years, and real-deal special forces groups did not exist. It took an explosion of terrorist-sponsored horror in the 60s and 70s to change all that. At the cutting edge, the British SAS.
The SAS started to anticipate terrorism in the early 60s. We knew then, long before Munich, long before the Red Army faction, that we were going to have a counter-terrorist unit.
The Munich Olympic Games, 1972. Palestinian terrorist group Black September take 11 members of the Israeli Olympic team hostage. German police, with no experience in counterterrorism, attempted to free the hostages. Their mission ended in tragedy. All Israeli athletes and one German police officer were killed. This disastrous intervention resulted in the SAS creating a counter-revolutionary war wing. If terrorists attacked Britain, they'd have to get past the boys in black. This kind of counter-terrorism would now need new weapons. First out of the kit locker was a non-lethal device that would become an SAS favorite. The stun grenade, aka the flashbang, a device that could be used in tight, confined spaces without harming hostages.
The stun grenade was a chain of small explosive charges and light, really, really bright light.
You know, in your eye, there are things called rods and cones, and they take in light and they amplify light. What's going to happen when this goes off? It's going to upset those rods and cones. It's going to take in so much that you're literally going to be blinded. The bang portion of this is the oral portion. The combination of the two, the flash and then the bang, are going to disorient bad guys inside.
delivering a blinding flash equivalent to 300,000 candle power and a deafening bang of 180 decibels, equivalent to a jet taking off. The flashbang gives the SAS 15 seconds of shock and awe.
This little device is basically the standard issue stun grenade for the British Army. Like all grenades, you hold the lever down and pull the pin out, and that's it, okay? Then you throw it.
In 1977, the SAS used their flashbangs in an explosive, real-time encounter. Once again, the Germans were in trouble. One of their Lufthansa passenger planes had been hijacked by the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine. German authorities didn't need another Munich. Their task force, the GSG-9, asked the British government for Special Forces backup. The SAS sent just 2 men to Mogadishu, where the plane was grounded. They were Major Alistair Morrison and Sergeant Barry Davies.
A Lufthansa flight flying out of Palma, Mallorca, back to Frankfurt, full of holidaymakers, which included 11 beauty queens, was hijacked. We had devised a plan where we both enter over wing doors, charge up the aircraft, front and rear, because there's nowhere else for them to go.
As the SAS were mounting their attack, the terrorists were preparing to send the plane and its innocent passengers into oblivion.
They had primed it with explosives. They'd actually taken all the tights and the ties off the men and women and tied their hands and legs together, strapped the seatbelts in, and they'd poured all the duty-free alcohol over them so they'd burn quicker. And they'd done this to little children as well.
Tensions mounted. Then, terrorist leader Martyr Mahmoud accused the pilot of passing on information to the authorities. Things went from bad to worse.
Mahmoud said, "You've been giving information away. You've been talking to the people. They know who we are." And he said, "Yes." And then he knelt him down in the aisle and put a gun to his head and blew his brains out.
The stakes had just changed dramatically. The SAS and GSG-9 were given the green light to go in.
Alistair and I both threw stun grenades. I threw one over the cockpit and one over the top of the aircraft, which went off with one hell of a bang.
The roar and flash of the grenades did their job. The terrorists were blinded, confused, and wide open to an assault on the plane.
I turned around and I saw the rear door open on the starboard side, and I saw one of the terrorists standing there, and she had a black T-shirt on with a red logo of Che Guevara. The guy just fired for it. She was knocked back into the toilet, and the guy dived in, and there was more gunfire from right around the aircraft. As it turned out, they were all wearing their uniform, which was this black shirt with Che Guevara on it, which made them easy targets. After about 3 minutes, they started chucking the passengers out. I went back on the ground to help organise the hostages, get them away to the rear of the aircraft where the ambulances were. I ducked onto the aircraft, and Alistair had this beauty queen in his hands, carrying her back towards the ambulance. I said to him, "You have to put her back." But it was a funny moment in the middle of a crisis.
All 86 hostages were safely rescued. The success of the operation owed much to the new stun grenade.
It was the first time stun grenades were ever used in an operation. They worked just perfectly. They were great.
The stun grenade is a classic example of the SAS's tactic of hitting their target using the element of surprise. A tactic that goes back to their very first missions behind enemy lines in World War II, delivering hammer blows to German aircraft.
Putting people on the ground in vehicles to run around the aerodrome shooting it up was a great thing. And they did it very well.
As the landscape of war and terror has shifted, so has the SAS's role. But at their core, one constant remains: the need to strike right at the heart of the enemy. Covert penetration, rapid insertion, living and fighting in the enemy's lair. This is what the SAS do. It's the kind of work that can buy a man enemies. It's the kind of work that can lead to a life of anonymity.
The whole concept and the idea of a special air service is all about operating behind enemy lines. The further you get behind enemy lines, actually the easier it is because people are not expecting you to be there.
Using the element of surprise and rapid insertion, the SAS caused maximum damage, destruction, and havoc with a minimum of manpower. It's a tactic that was developed by the SAS's founder, the head of their family tree, Lieutenant Colonel David Stirling. World War II, Stirling and the British Army were fighting the Germans for supremacy in North Africa. Directly in their sights, Rommel's Afrika Korps. Both sides knew that air superiority in the desert would be crucial to the conflict. Stirling had to silence the Luftwaffe. He believed the solution lay in small, four-man raiding parties loaded onto jeeps and armed to the teeth with heavy caliber weapons. Their mission, to take out German air bases.
Bombing targets from the air during World War II was sort of a hit or miss affair, particularly if the aircraft were dispersed. So one of the reasons the SAS come into being was to attack German aerodromes. Putting people on the ground in vehicles to run around the aerodrome shooting it up was a great thing, and they did it very well.
The vehicle the SAS chose to mount their missions was the legendary Willys Jeep. Small, fast, and reliable, it had served the American Army in Europe and the Far East.
The SAS would have modified this vehicle for use in the desert. They would have put a mount up here in the front and on the other side for 2 machine guns. And about this position right here and over there, they would have put another mount for 2 more machine guns. And then in the center, they could have put a big mount and then put a 50 caliber machine gun on that. So this vehicle had quite a lot of firepower for raiding German aerodromes.
The SAS had taken the Willys and turned it into a four-wheeled apocalypse. Their plan? Infiltrate German airfields, drive right up to parked fighters, and smash the Luftwaffe from point-blank range.
They favored a direct attack in their jeeps, driving down the center of the runway in a V formation, using the massive firepower of their Vickers Ks.
The Vickers K was originally fielded in British fighters and bombers, delivering a rate of up to 1,200 rounds per minute. It was a First World War Widowmaker, a flesh and fabric chewing beast, capable of bringing down German planes. But to destroy targets on the ground, British weaponologists would have to rethink their choice of bullets. Shooting up wings and fuselages wouldn't be enough. The German planes had to be permanently grounded.
A lead bullet shooting up an airplane punches a hole through it, and that's effective. But what they were using was a round called Buckingham, which was in use in the First World War to shoot down balloons. It was a high explosive round.
It was the invention of J.F. Buckingham, a British automobile engineer. The bullet contained an incendiary filling, which percolated through a small hole, the seal of which melted on firing, resulting in the phosphorus igniting on contact with the air. Using the Buckingham, the SAS were able to cause carnage before speeding back to base camp and safety.
The SAS marries a Jeep, the Vickers K, the Buckingham round, and some very well-trained soldiers into a team, and they go after the German Luftwaffe in North Africa, and they're very effective at it.
The SAS destroyed on the ground more aircraft than were destroyed by the Desert Air Force in the air.
In fact, they had destroyed over 200 planes, crippling Rommel's dream of establishing German air superiority. Mission accomplished. Through World War II, the Willys Jeep and the SAS became a lethal combination, the Bonnie and Clyde of deep, devastating insertion. But like all doomed relationships, the SAS soon split for a younger model, the British Land Rover. Slower and heavier than the Willys, it made up for it with an indestructible body and a greater load capacity.
Land Rover makes a very good four-wheel drive vehicle. It's a very reliable vehicle, and it can be fixed. So that's why the SAS like it.
We strip it down, just pack the wagon full of fuel, pack it full of ammunition, and get on with it, basically. And it works. It's a good wagon.
Of course, the electrical system is not good, and it leaks and all kinds of things. But other than that, it's a great vehicle.
In 1968, the SAS converted a 109-inch Land Rover for desert duties. 4 fuel tanks allowed a capacity of 100 gallons to be carried. Heavier-duty chassis, springs, and sand tires were fitted. The doors and windscreen were removed to lower its weight and profile. It also got an insane paint job.
Pink Panther was this marvellous nickname for this modified Land Rover, so called because the camouflage scheme adopted was a pinky-coloured one, which was very effective in the desert.
Pink absorbs light, and at night, that pink vehicle turns invisible. It's called Mountbatten Pink.
The Pinky's paintwork evolved from experiments conducted on World War II British warships. Admiral Louis Mountbatten, a relative of the future Queen of England, mixed medium gray and Venetian red to create what became known as Mountbatten Pink. He believed this color absorbed light, camouflaging his destroyers.
The problem was that sailors don't like to go to sea in a pink boat, so they gave up on it. But it's a very, very effective color at night.
The Pink Panther didn't defend the SAS's hardman credentials. They've stuck with the Land Rover, and today, the 110-inch model is blazing the Taliban in Afghanistan. The SAS go in where it hurts, hitting the enemy hard and fast. And nobody needs hitting harder or faster than terrorists. In 1980, they proved it, mounting the most famous Special Forces mission in history. And in the process, a certain submachine gun would become a legend. By the early 80s, terrorism was big news. All around the world, elite Special Forces were training for the worst, hoping for the best. In Britain, the SAS had already cut their teeth in counterinsurgency and had assisted foreign governments with terrorist incidents. But they wouldn't have time to grow complacent. In 1980, a 6-man terrorist team calling itself the Democratic Revolutionary Movement for the Liberation of Arabistan entered the Iranian embassy in London. They took 26 hostages and demanded the release of 91 comrades held in Iranian jails. The SAS were immediately deployed to London. The mission's codename? Operation Nimrod. Their base of operations? The building right next door to the embassy, number 14 Prince's Gate. Among their number, SAS trooper Pete Winner.
From number 14, we could mount a technical attack on the building, which employs listening devices, fibre optics, and the whole of the building eventually became bugged.
Surveillance has always been a core aspect of every SAS mission. Over hours, days, and even weeks, they study the enemy, watch him, listen to him, know him.
Part of the equipment that they used in the embassy takedown were pinhole cameras, where they could put a camera in a little hole through the wall and look to cover their tracks so that the terrorists inside couldn't hear them. They redirected flights out of Heathrow Airport so that the noise of the aircraft flying overhead would disguise what was going on the ground.
Using architects' plans, the SAS began familiarizing themselves with the embassy's layout. They had to know every room, every window, every door, like the back of their hands.
Whichever room that you were going to assault, from the architect's plan, they actually measured it all out, and in white tape they did a reproduction on the floor.
And the commander go, okay, stand by, go. And all you do is just walk in, and you stand in your room, and you look around. So you've got an idea where everybody is, you know, what's going on. So it's all slow time. It's called tabletop.
They rehearsed this plan over and over and over again to where everything was rote memory. Not only did they know their job, but they knew everybody else's job.
The 6th day of the siege, and the situation inside the embassy had deteriorated rapidly.
The terrorists, and in particular their leader Salim, were getting noticeably edgy.
We just got a general feeling that things were actually going to come to a climax very soon, and they certainly did. A gunshot was heard, and Salim announced down the landline he killed the hostage.
The killing marked a critical escalation of the situation. Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher gave the SAS the green light to storm the embassy.
That was it. The ticket to ride.
The teams got kitted up in their suits, boots, and body armor and checked their weapons. Crucial to the operation's success would be their entry man, the guy within the patrol who breaks the unit in. The point of entry, its effectiveness and speed are everything. For this, the SAS huff and puff and blow their way in.
This is a new frame charge. It's made basically of a thick compressed paper background so the soldiers can actually put it against the wall and stand very close to it. You put it against the wall, put your prop against it, also made of paper, and that's it. There is no blowback. Most of the force goes forward. The soldier can stand, I would say, up to 2 meters, within 2 meters of the device going off.
"7 p.m., May 4th, 1980, and it was showtime for the frame charge. Stuck like limpets to the Iranian embassy, ready to kick off the SAS's incredible takedown.
We all got the code word London Bridge at about 7:25, which meant it was a green light. Let's go, go, go.
The regiment's meticulous preparation and surveillance would now come together in a furious, focused assault.
The abseilers went down. The frame charge blasts in the window. And in the guys go. We have a saying in the regiment that SAS stands for speed, aggression and surprise. And when we did the embassy siege, that's what it was all about. Speed, aggression, surprise.
The frame charge had plowed the way in for the SAS. But with no turning back, they needed a weapon that would blaze the terrorists inside to kingdom come. They turned to their new favorite firearm, the German-made MP5 submachine gun. Designed in 1964 by Heckler & Koch, it would become a Special Forces icon.
The MP5 is a very good weapon for hostage situations because it fires from a closed bolt. A lot of submachine guns fire from what's known as an open bolt, and the bolt is back like that. So that when you fire the weapon, the bolt goes home. Well, you see this jump. This weapon fires from a closed bolt, so it's bang. Very steady. So this is a very, very, very accurate submachine gun.
It's small, it's got a great rate of fire, the recoil is virtually non-existent, so you can get good automatic fire down, good 5-round bursts. You have a nice tight group, and that's what you're after, because what you're trying to do is kill people with it.
Larry Vickers, ex-US Special Forces, has used the MP5 and rates it very highly.
Well, as you can tell, the headshot is very adequately accurate for the task. And these are all the burst shots, well within the kill zone and also well within our hand-sized limit. Extremely accurate firearm, extremely controllable, which is why units like the British SAS use it.
Storming the embassy, MP5s blazing. The SAS knew any failure would mean certain loss of innocent lives.
Once we got into that building, I really felt these guys don't stand a chance. The noise was horrendous. You could hear gunfire everywhere. There's gas swirling around, and they were shouting and screaming. Oh, it was an absolute madhouse. And somebody was stood at the top of the stairs and sort of moved his gas mask out of the way so he could shout, "Get ready, the hostages are coming, the hostages are coming." Go, 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 go. And the same guy, "Watch, this guy's a terrorist, watch out, this guy's a terrorist." And as he got level with me, I could just see a grenade. I just got a glimpse of it. I thought, this guy, Christ, this guy's got a grenade in his hand. Where he was actually stood, I just couldn't open fire. You know, with an MP5 at that range, at close quarter, it'll go straight through a human body. But I knew I had to do something. I had to immobilize this guy. So what I did, I just got my MP5 up, and I sort of brought the butt down, whacked him, and he rolled down the few steps, and everybody opens fire.
The SAS acted with extreme prejudice. The dead terrorist had over 76 rounds in his body. The MP5 had done its job, and so had the boys in black.
Any special force that goes into a building with armed terrorists, you're going to kill them. The chances of those guys, the terrorists, turning on the hostages is just too great.
One of the first to show gratitude to the unit was British Prime Minister Maggie Thatcher.
Maggie swept in like the Caesar returning to the Senate, and she went, "Gentlemen, there is nothing sweeter than success, and you guys have got it." And we all cheered, "Come and get a drink, Maggie." And yeah, that's exactly what she did, wander around and asked us this, that and the other, and accepted a can of lager, and yeah, she was bubbling. She was, you know, she was magnificent.
For the British government and the SAS, the embassy siege was a propaganda slam dunk.
I think the repercussions on a worldwide basis of the takedown of the embassy in London was that if you're a terrorist organization, don't screw around with the SAS. They'll kill you.
The Iranian embassy siege in London became the blueprint for all future counter-terrorist assaults. The SAS had become the Special Forces poster boys. But joining the regiment isn't about glamour. It's about pain, suffering, ruthless dedication, and an iron will. Selection and training are fierce, and only a handful make the grade.
You're looking at least 97% failure.
To join any elite force, you've got to put your body, your mind, and your reputation through 7 shades of hell. Training is brutal. It has to be. The SAS selects soldiers from a cross-section of the British Army, the Royal Engineers, the Parachute Regiment, Signals Corps. They all bring different skills. They all go through the same selection.
The selection process in total is 7 months long. And there's normally no more than 200 people at a time go on a selection. The first month is just totally endurance, physical endurance.
For most soldiers, selection becomes a grim ordeal, a fight for survival.
You're looking at least 97% failure rate. Some people just give up after a couple of weeks. Some people die. You know, every year there's probably somebody getting killed on the training.
Some of these deaths are from exposure, exhaustion, and accidents. Other deaths are a result of the SAS's insistence on always using live ammo, even when training.
All training that we do always has to be live, because otherwise it's pointless doing.
Elite units forge men capable of staying calm when the bullets fly. Men who can look down a barrel, pull the trigger, and barely blink. To achieve this, they go through extensive firearms training. Every weapon becomes part of the man. Every man becomes a weapon.
Training is what's the important thing for the soldier, and becomes part of your life. Today, I pick a weapon up, and it's like I've never let it down.
In close quarter combat, the SAS liked short, compact, reliable hardware. In the regiment's early history, this meant the Browning high-power pistol.
This is a 9mm semi-automatic gas-operated pistol, sometimes called the Browning high power. This has a very large magazine capacity. Because it's a 9mm, it has low recoil. You can hold it steady, and you can get on a target and stay on a target very, very easily.
High power in name, this pistol still comes with limitations. Its 9mm caliber lacks a heavyweight punch. The SAS resolved this problem by upping their lead dose. Terrorists would now get 2 for the price of 1.
One of the problems with the Browning is it's 9mm, so it doesn't have the hitting power. So we overcome that by training what we taught was a double tap. So instead of firing 1 round, we fired 2. And if ever you hear the SAS firing the Browning, it's always tap, 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 tap.
You apply 2 rapidly aimed shots in very close succession to each other. theory behind that those two shots in a small area on the body creates twice as much damage.
To maximize the effect of the double tap and take the enemy down fast, the SAS aim for the brain.
We always train for headshots so that you got a guaranteed kill.
What you're trying to do is there's a term like drop like liquid. And what happens is that they can't react because literally they just drop. And that's what you're trying to achieve. So always headshots.
The Browning's design stretched back to 1922. And despite its reliability, it had had its day. It was time to adopt a newer, modern pistol. In the 1980s, German manufacturer Sig Sauer designed the P226. And it wasn't long before the SAS bagged it as their new pistol of choice. Unlike the heavy, all-steel Browning, the SIG is made from a lighter metal alloy. It has ambidextrous side activation buttons and carries more rounds in its magazine, 15, compared to the Browning's 13.
Okay, what we have here is the SIG P226 9mm service pistol, the pistol that replaced the Browning high power in British SASUs. Magazine holds 15 rounds of 9mm ammunition. You load it in the same manner as the Browning. Also, this SIG is equipped with a set of laser grips that emits a red dot laser from the right-hand side of the grip, activated by buttons on both sides of the pistol. This allows you to shoot it very accurately at night, on the move, and essentially was a feature that is available now that was not available when the Browning high power was first put in service.
Yeah. Side by side, it's the SIG versus the Browning. The lighter trigger action, coupled with the tracing laser grips of the SIG, ensure it outshines the Browning.
If you compare the poorer sights, the heavier trigger, and not quite the accuracy of the Browning high power compared to the SIG, my target is certainly not nearly as good as yours.
And you can see the target with the SIG and how tight the group is. It's easy to see why the SAS went from the high power to the SIG.
The SAS's emphasis on small arms is crucial. They fight close up, going into tight environments and making shots count. It's a combination of skills that demands constant training in combat-realistic environments. Central to this training is a building where they learn just what it takes to mount a terrorist takedown. Welcome to the Killing House.
The SAS pioneered a technique called the Killing House, where they practice hostage rescues. So when they come into a room, they are trained immediately to recognize what the threats are, to instantly size up the situation, and then to take down the threat.
Purpose-built, the Killing House is a 2-story building with 4 rooms on each floor. To the naked eye, it looks mundane and domestic. Doors, chairs, tables, pictures. But this house contains secrets. Rubber-coated walls absorb live rounds. Extractor fans clear out the gun fumes. CCTV cameras are rolling on record. And around every corner, there's a bad guy made of metal.
The Killing House was a purpose-built number of ranges, 6 different sized rooms, all with 360-degree arcs of fire. You could practice siege busting, room combat as we call it, any type of firing whatsoever, MP5s, pistols.
Storming through the Killing House, chewing up terrorists, spitting bullets. This is what the SAS do, over and over and over.
The only reason that things like the Iranian embassy siege and any of the operations succeed is because if you're on the counter-terrorism team, every day of the week you're in the killing houses, every day that you're practicing, because everything's got to become such an automatic process. What you're trying to do is take headshots at 5 meters and over at moving targets on your moving, with obstructions, with people who are there who you don't want to kill. So it serves its purpose.
The Killing House's fame has attracted a host of VIPs. Prime ministers and royalty have all taken part in hostage release scenarios. Incredibly, live ammo is always used.
Prince Charles, Princess Diana, actually in the room, total darkness. The VIPs watching screened off in the corner, and then a team of 4 guys would come in a split second, throw stun grenades, shoot at all the targets, which are literally inches behind them, hit the targets, miss the VIP, snatch the VIP and take them out of the room.
We have to put these demonstrations on, and you get lots of their cabinet office, all these sort of guys come in, because they want to see what they're paying for and what they're getting for their money.
When former British Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher went into the killing house, she lived up to her nickname, the Iron Lady.
She wanted to be the hostage, so she sat at a table and she put her handbag on the table, and there was 2 guys to her sort of aides, a guy called George. So he said, right, George, you sit there. You know. So we done this drill where we all came in, and George collapsed to the floor, and Thatcher just sat there with her bag, and she was taking it all in. And she said, get up, George, you're embarrassing me.
What's good enough for Maggie Thatcher is good enough for the rest of the world. The ongoing legacy of the killing house can be seen in its adoption by other global elite units.
Certainly Americans have taken over the concept. Certainly Delta Force have their own sort of killing house. The FBI now have modelled it on our killing houses, and even the Israelis now use the same sort of concept.
The killing house is a hyper-real experience, but it isn't the same as coming under intense enemy fire. Deep behind enemy lines, the SAS are on their own, exposed, and if you get captured, you're in for a whole lot of hurt.
They lined everybody up, facing the brick wall, and they all started to cock their weapons. And you think, we've got no control, so...
The SAS are an undetectable, indestructible, unstoppable tornado. Counterinsurgency, counterterrorism, count on this. They're going to slap you down. The secret of any Special Forces success lies in furious training, meticulous preparation, and clinical execution. 9 times out of 10, it pays off. But when it doesn't, you've got to know how to escape and evade. At the worst, you'll have to withstand excruciating torture. The SAS are shrouded in secrecy. Current operatives are barred from speaking to the media. Past members often choose anonymity, adopting pseudonyms. The reason? They're inserted into the world's hellholes to take out the trash. One mission in the SAS's history typifies the dangers its soldiers are pushed to, the limits they face. 1991, Operation Desert Storm. An SAS patrol is chopper deep behind Iraqi lines. Their mission? Stop the information fueling the Scud attacks against Israel.
During the first Gulf War, I was the patrol commander of an 8-man foot patrol, and the call sign was Bravo 20. And the mission was to find and destroy a fibre optic cable that was sending the information from Baghdad to the Scud teams that were firing in the western deserts into Israel.
The mission was soon compromised and had to be abandoned. The SAS troops were now fleeing for their lives. As Iraqis showered rounds of lead down on them, their only option was to fight fire with fire.
It's not like the films where everybody's like, charge, all that. It doesn't exist. We wanted to get that huge amount of firepower down, not only to obviously kill as many people as possible, but actually confuse and then get away.
For long-range contacts, the SAS generated firepower with the heavy-caliber GPMG, aka the M240. But foot patrols need lighter weapons, and in the 1980s, they adopted a machine gun classic, the Mini-Me, aka the Saw.
This is the 5.56 millimeter Mini-Me, or the M249 as it's known in the United States. If you want to keep the other guy's head down, this is what you keep his head down with. The thing that makes this a sustained fire weapon are 2. One is that it's belt fit, and you have a 200-round box here. The other thing is, as you're firing, the barrel heats, and because this has a quick change barrel, you can change the barrel out, go with a fresh barrel, and keep up the rate of fire.
Built by Fabrique Nationale at their headquarters in South Carolina, the saw is a weapon that lives up to its name.
Well, seeing as they do call this the saw, I'm going to try to saw something in half for you. It's a done deal.
The saw's relentless buzz allows elite units like the SAS to make fighting retreats.
What it's all about is shoot and scoot. So what you do, get the rounds down and get out of the way. Because the object is not to take them on. Because chances are, which happens, you're going to run out of ammunition and you're going to die. So what you do, take them on and get out of the way and keep on going. Where we were going was northwest to the border.
Having successfully battled their way out of a couple of bloody contacts, the unit got separated. Alone and exhausted, McNabb's game of cat and mouse saw him within sniffing distance of safety, the Syrian border. But just as he could smell his freedom, the Iraqis caught him, and the game was up. Treated as a spy, McNabb was dragged to Baghdad, where a furious interrogation began. He endured physical beatings and humiliating degradation.
They would come in sometimes, pure out of frustration. I had to eat my own feces once and do Michael Jackson moon dances.
It would be enough to destroy most normal men. But the SAS aren't normal. As part of his training, McNabb, along with other SAS operatives, have met long-term hostages. Their experiences would help him stay sane.
Certainly what helped me, my resistance to interrogation training, was listening to everybody's experiences. And for me, there was an American Marine pilot who was captured during the Vietnam War and spent 6 years in solitary confinement. Every major bone in his body was broken during torture. With no medical care, he had to look after himself, and he survived it all. And he said, what they're after is what you got in your head. Don't worry about your body. You've got no control. If they want to, damage you, they will. Try and minimize it the best you can, but actually what you've got to do is keep an integrity of your mind.
After 6 long weeks of torture and interrogation, teeth smashed out and bones broken, McNabb's luck changed. Saddam Hussein agreed to trade SAS captives for Iraqi POWs. The end was in sight, or so he thought.
Even on a release, the very final thing of before getting released to the Red Cross, they lined everybody up, facing a brick wall, and they all started to cock their weapons. And you think, we've got no control, so what? So what? Who cares?
In the end, it was one final cruel bluff by the Iraqis, and McNabb was finally free to walk away. He'd endured a mental and physical battering, but his elite SAS training had seen him home.
The Bravo 20 experience, just not only my sort of personal experience of that, but the other guys that survived that, I think embodies everything that the Special Air Service are about.
The SAS are an elite forces phenomenon. Masters of counterterrorism and counterinsurgency, they are equipped for any occasion, anytime, anywhere. Drawn together, the branches on their family tree reflect their unique genesis. Deep penetration behind enemy lines required heavily weaponized jeeps. Counterterrorism resulted in the adoption of the MP5 and the creation of the legendary Killing House. And 21st century firepower has given this elite force an even nastier bite. The result, the best pound-for-pound special ops unit in the world. The British SAS. The Special Air Service, the SAS, Britain's supreme special ops unit. From raiding the North African airfields of World War II, to busting scuds behind enemy lines in Iraq, and neutralizing radical terrorists. When Queen and Country comes calling, these guys don't stop till the bad guys drop. To take down their enemies in close quarters, they use stun grenades, Browning and Sig Sauer pistols, and MP5 submachine guns. For penetrating behind enemy lines, the SAS use heavily armored Land Rovers. Their motto is, who dares wins. And they always win. Now, weaponology will unlock their family tree, going back through generations of technology to reveal how direct action, close-quarter training, and relentless firepower have evolved the SAS into the most feared, daring, and slick of the world's elite special units. Palestinian terrorist group Black September take 11 members of the Israeli Olympic team hostage. German police, with no experience in counterterrorism, attempted to free the hostages. Their mission ended in tragedy. All Israeli athletes and one German police officer were killed. This disastrous intervention resulted in the SAS creating a counter-revolutionary war wing. If terrorists attacked Britain, they'd have to get past the boys in black. This kind of counterterrorism would now need new weapons. First out of the kit locker was a non-lethal device that would become an SAS favorite. The stun grenade, aka the flashbang, a device that could be used in tight, confined spaces without harming hostages.
The stun grenade was a chain of small explosive charges and light, really, really bright light.
You know, in your eye, there are things called rods and cones, and
It's one of the smallest superpowers, an island nation with a proud warrior spirit. Today, one force in their army is the best of the best. A Rapier Edge Special Operations Group that has carved a legend.
if you're a terrorist organization, don't screw around with the SAS. They'll kill you.
The British SAS are a tornado, smashing anything that stands between them and their objective.
We always train for headshots so that you got a guaranteed kill.
Prepare to get locked and loaded as we go back through generations of technology to trace the evolution of the deadliest elite force in the world, the SAS. It's time to go ballistic. In the 21st century, every nation has its own special forces group, tasked with covert missions deep behind enemy lines, counterinsurgency and hostage takedowns. These units are the elite of the elite. They combine snipers, mountain climbers, specialist drivers, medics, martial arts gurus, and explosive experts. Take them on, and you will lose. But rewind 50 years, and real-deal special forces groups did not exist. It took an explosion of terrorist-sponsored horror in the 60s and 70s to change all that. At the cutting edge, the British SAS.
The SAS started to anticipate terrorism in the early 60s. We knew then, long before Munich, long before the Red Army faction, that we were going to have a counter-terrorist unit.
The Munich Olympic Games, 1972.
Take in light and the amplify light. What's going to happen when this goes off? It's going to upset those rods and cones. It's going to take in so much that you're literally going to be blinded. The bang portion of this is the oral portion. The combination of the two, the flash and then the bang, are going to disorient bad guys inside.
Delivering a blinding flash equivalent to 300,000 candle power and a deafening bang of 180 decibels, equivalent to a jet taking off. The flashbang gives the SAS 15 seconds of shock and awe.
This little device is basically the standard issue stun grenade for the British Army. Like all grenades, you hold the lever down and pull the pin out, and that's it, okay? Then you throw it.
In 1977, the SAS used their flashbangs in an explosive, real-time encounter. Once again, the Germans were in trouble. One of